I have ruled the Vol court for 11 years, and I will tell you plainly that nothing in those years frightened me the way my son's silence did. Elric stopped speaking 4 months after the fever took his mother. He did not cry. He did not rage. He simply went quiet, the way a lamp goes out when the oil runs dry, and no one in my palace could tell me how to fill it back up. I brought in the finest minds the Vol Reach could summon. A physician from the eastern reef cities who claimed to read grief in the pulse of the throat. A priestess who burned pale resin under his window for 11 nights running. An engineer who built him a small mechanical bird that sang 3 different songs, thinking novelty might startle him back to himself. Each of them arrived with confidence. Each of them left within a week, quieter than they had come, having tried a new miracle and failed at it. I watched my boy grow thinner. He would eat only if a servant held the spoon exactly the way his mother once had, and even then, only a few bites before turning his face to the wall. He flinched from touch he did not expect. He slept in short, ragged pieces, waking with a small animal cry that no lullaby seemed to reach. My physicians changed their approach weekly. New tonics, new rituals, new theories about the shape of a child's grief, and every change seemed to frighten him worse than the last. It was my steward, not any physician, who first mentioned the human doctor. There was a border clinic 3 days' ride from the palace, in the settlement we call Marrow Ridge, where a handful of human laborers and their families had been granted land after the old border wars. A woman ran the clinic there, Iris Halloway, a field doctor, nothing more. She stitched wounds from thresher accidents and delivered babies in the back of wagons. My steward mentioned her only because she happened to be the nearest doctor of any kind when a courier fell from his horse near Marrow Ridge and needed setting. He said she had steady hands. That was the whole of his recommendation. I did not send for her because I believed in her. I sent for her because I had run out of people who believed in themselves. She arrived without ceremony, in a plain gray coat with a scuffed leather bag, and she did not bow as deeply as court required, though I noticed she did bow, correctly, and did not seem to think it mattered whether I noticed. She asked to see the boy alone in his own room, rather than the grand sick ward my physicians preferred, with its polished instruments and its high windows built to let in the healing light, as the reef physician had called it. She said the room made no difference to a fever, and she doubted it would make one to grief. What she did that first day was almost an insult, I thought at the time. She knelt by his bed, took his small wrist, counted his pulse against a plain brass pocket watch, looked in his eyes with a lamp, listened at his chest, and left. She said 4 sentences to him the entire visit, all of them ordinary. Good morning, hold still, thank you, I'll see you tomorrow. And none of them promised him anything. I expected grander things. I told her so, not unkindly. The second evening, I asked what her plan was for restoring my son's voice. She said she did not have one, and that anyone who told me they did was lying to make me feel better, not to help the boy. I did not know what to say to that. No one at my court had ever told me such a thing to my face. What she did instead, day after day, was the same. She came at the same hour each morning. She knelt in the same spot. She held his wrist the same way, counted the same count, checked his eyes with the same lamp, listened at his chest for the same span of time. I know because I began, out of some helpless curiosity, to count it myself. 22 heartbeats, always. She said the same 4 sentences, in the same order, every single day, in the same flat, unhurried voice, whether he screamed or lay silent, or turned from her entirely. My court found this baffling. My reef physician called it a failure of imagination. My priestess suggested the woman simply lacked the wit for finer methods. By the second week, I noticed my son's hand had begun to lift toward her before she reached for it. By the third week, he held still for the lamp without needing to be held. I asked her once, standing in the hall afterward, why she never varied it, why she did not try new questions, new games, the things the others had tried. She looked at me the way a mason might look at a man asking why he kept laying the bricks in the same pattern, and she said that everything in his life had changed at once, without warning, and had gone on changing every week since. New tutors, new tonics, new rooms, new songs, until the only thing he could trust was that nothing could be trusted. She said a frightened child does not need a miracle. He needs to know exactly what will happen next, and then he needs it to happen exactly that way, every day, until his body remembers that the world can still keep a promise. I had ruled a kingdom for 11 years and never once heard it put so plainly. She was not warm with him, not in the way the nursemaids were warm, all soft voices and cooing. She was steady. She spoke to him the way she might speak to a grown man, without pity in her tone, and I began to understand that this too was deliberate. Grief does not want to be cooed at, she told me once. It wants to be respected enough to be told the truth in a voice that does not shake. On the 26th morning, I stood in the doorway as I often did by then, and I watched her kneel, take his wrist, count the same 22 beats. When she reached for her lamp, my son spoke. He said, "You're late." He was wrong. She was not late, not by so much as a minute. I had checked the hour myself. But I understood, standing there, that he had said it the way any child says it to a parent he trusts enough to complain to. It was the first full sentence he had spoken since his mother died, and it was an accusation of tardiness against a woman who had never once been late. Iris did not weep, though I confess I nearly did. She only said, "I'm sorry. Hold still," and finished her count, as if nothing in the world had happened, though I saw her hand was not quite as steady as it had been a moment before. After that, the words came back to him slowly, the way water returns to a dry riverbed, a trickle at first, then more. He began asking her questions during her visits. He began, without anyone teaching him to, calling her by a word that was not her name. She never corrected him for it, and I never asked her to. I offered her a title, royal physician to the heir, with rank and a house within the palace walls and a seat near mine at court functions. She declined all of it, quietly and without offense, and said she would rather keep the clinic at Marrow Ridge running, since the threshers did not stop breaking men's arms simply because the prince had found his voice. We compromised. She keeps her clinic. She comes to the palace 6 mornings in 7, at the same hour, and kneels in the same spot, and counts the same 22 heartbeats, and says her same 4 sentences, and my son holds out his wrist before she asks for it. My court has never fully understood why the woman who did the least was the one who succeeded where all our cleverness failed. I understand it now. Every physician I brought to my son offered him a new miracle. The human doctor offered him the same morning, over and over, until he trusted the world enough to speak in it again. The court has since tried to make more of it than it is. There is talk of commissioning a portrait, the human doctor and the prince, painted in the sickward with the tall windows and their false healing light, though she has never once used that room and I doubt she ever will. There is talk of a formal decree naming her a friend of the crown. She has asked for none of it, and I have learned, in the 6 months since that 26th morning, not to press her. She does not want to be made into a story. She wants her clinic to have enough bandages before winter, and she wants to be at my son's door by the same hour tomorrow, and the morning after that, for as long as he needs her to be. I do not call her by her title, because she asked me not to use one. My son calls her by the only name that ever mattered in that room, and when I hear it now, echoing down the corridor toward the same door, at the same hour, I no longer flinch the way I once did, waiting for the day it might stop.